on so that it will work. And we'll be posting it to our academic business area of our student community. Our student community allows students to interact with each other. It's kind of like a social media site. It also allows students to interact with our faculty and our staff. So this recording will be posted out there probably later this week. And then, you know, if you missed something or you want to go back and listen to it, we hope you'll, you know, take the opportunity to do that. We hope you enjoy Devi's presentation tonight. I hope you find it interesting and instructive. Before we get started, I'd like to take a minute to ensure everybody's ready and familiar with the webinar control panel on the right side of your screen. First, on that control panel, you should see an arrow, and you can minimize the panel by clicking on that arrow up in the upper left corner of the control panel, and that'll kind of move it off to the side for you to get it out of the way. And if you click on it again, that'll bring it back so that you can get to the question box. You have the ability to ask questions during this. I see Gina has already posted something to our question box. I was hoping just to make sure that everybody knows how to use it, why don't you all type something in there? Why don't you give me your name and where you're from, and just so that I know that you can hear us okay, and that you know how to use that box. Devi's webinar is kind of interactive, so you know, we want to, you know, we're interested in hearing questions from you, so feel free to post to the box. So I see Dominique's from Minnesota, and let's see, who else do we have here? I see Gina's posted to the box. Who else is here? Tamika, can you hear me? Carrie, can you hear me? I see, let's see, who else is here? Christy? Everybody be able to hear me okay? All righty. Okay, so I guess we'll get started then. Basically, we've allowed 1 hour for this webinar. It may be a little less than that, we'll see, or a little more than that. But you know, there will be time for questions if you have them as we go through this. Feel free to post them in the question box whenever you have something either about the course, or maybe you have a question about the school or the program. Feel free to post your questions. Today's presenter, as I mentioned, is Devi Valabhani. And she earned a MBA from Harvard Business School and received her undergraduate degree from the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana. Devi currently serves on the admission board for Harvard Business School for outreach and evaluation of candidates worldwide. And as I said, she's the author of our Introduction to Business course. So I'm now going to turn over the mic to Devi, and you can take it away.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Russell, and thank you everyone for joining today. I'm really excited to spend the next hour or so with you as we talk about the Intro to Business course, and also learn about you in terms of and what some of your goals are, and to see how we can help you achieve them, whether they're career goals, personal development goals, educational goals. So that's, you know, very much important for us to understand what's important to you, so we can be part of that solution for you. So with that said, Russell, why don't we move to the next slide and talk and give everyone an overview of what to expect. So today the goal is to show you how the course is structured, and by doing that we're also going to take two companies and look at them further, the Lego Group and Netflix. So Legos, most everyone has probably played with them or have family members or friends who have played with them. So we're going to talk about the business side of Lego, and then also spend a few minutes on Netflix. I'm sure that's something that we've spent many hours on, whether it's Netflix or Amazon or Hulu. You know, nowadays that whole industry has just really blossomed, and we're going to talk about, again, the business side of entertainment for a few minutes. And then we'll finish it up with some Q&A, but really, as Russell indicated earlier, we're going to, take your questions as they come up, so feel free to type them in, to share them, so we can kind of address them as we go. We're going to stop periodically to make sure we answer everybody's questions. So with that said, let's move to the next slide.
Sorry, we're having a little problem here. There we go. Okay. Okay.
There we go. Perfect. So so as I said, the most important thing is really what your goals are. We can probably imagine what a few of them could be, but feel free to spend just a minute typing up what your goals are in terms of, is it to earn a business degree and this is your starting point? Is it then to get a good job? Is it to get a promotion? Are you thinking of using a few these courses to change jobs? So it's really to get a good sense of what's important to you, and that way, if we know that up front, I can try to address them as we move along in today's discussion. So if you can...
yeah, I don't have anything here yet.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's okay too if you want to type them in as you go, or again, we probably have majority of your goals covered in terms of based on what other students have told us in terms of what their goals are for this course. So if these are some of those goals, then we already have that covered and we can proceed. So with that said, why don't we proceed to the next slide, which Russell has already done so. Our Intro to Business course is really designed for both employees and employers. And what I mean by that is the entire kind of structure of the course is really to teach you the universal language of business. So wherever you work, you could work for a retailer, you could work for a manufacturer, you could work in healthcare, you can work at any company. And every company has topics like marketing, operations, strategy, accounting, finance, and HR. And so those are the same topics that are going to be in this course. And so by learning what employers, what the different departments are of an employer, you get a good overview of what to expect, both from kind of a job in business, as well as then kind of as you progress through the Penn Foster business programs. This is really kind of that survey course to give you that overview of all different areas of business. So you can, you might say, oh, I've heard of marketing. I kind of know what that is involved, or what's involved in marketing. I really like that, so I'm going to take more marketing courses. Or, wow, accounting, I never thought I would like it so much, but I really enjoyed it. Okay, well, that will give you that overview to study that further. So that's on the employer side. You as an employee will be exposed to then some of the other topics like management and teams and leadership and ethics, communications and negotiations, and all those topics really benefit you as the individual. So that's how we kind of broke up the different topics that you'll see covered. Some are very much directed towards how companies are organized, and some of the topics are more directed towards you as the employee within those companies. So that's how we've structured it to be able to benefit both employees and employers. So I'll pause here for a second, make sure everything's okay with Russell and any of the comments, and then before we proceed to the next slide.
Yeah, well, we just have postings. I guess they came a little later, but Dominique and Gina both are looking for a degree. It looks like Dominique's already enrolled in the Introduction to Biology course, so that's a great elective for some of our business programs, and it'll definitely transfer into a business program as a general elective. So the Introduction to Business course is part of all of our business degree programs, and this kind of gives you a sample of what a course covers, and you'll find it is a good representative course of our program.
Great. Well, I'm happy to hear that. So, so with that said, then, so Dominique, thank you for sharing, and so I'll make sure if there's anything that as we go through it that's relevant in terms of for you know, a biology class or as you think about, you know, being able to apply that, I'll make sure to incorporate that as we move forward. So with that said, let's move then to the next slide. You know, as I said, you know, the course is really structured for both employees and employers. So if we step back and talk about kind of just, you know, business education for a second, business education is really all about case studies in terms of learning about companies, how they work, what they do, how they make decisions. And our course here has case studies and you'll be exposed to, you know, companies, leading companies like Facebook and Apple and Google and Chipotle and Walmart and Uber, Dunkin' Donuts. So we really have a cross-section of industries and companies to be able to then say, okay, we find that learning about business is much easier when we can use companies that we're already familiar with. You know, we're consumers, and by being a consumer, we are exposed to business all the time. So why not use that as a foundation to be able to say, okay, this is how Chipotle does it, this is how Nike does it. Well, what can we learn from them to be able to then apply it to our own jobs or to our own employers? So you'll see then that this is very much a practical way of looking at business. This is not a theoretical and very academic orientation in terms of that it's so pie in the sky. It's very practical. It's very, very much job oriented. I would say that's how I would describe this course.
Okay, we don't have any questions at this point.
Okay. So let's move, okay, great. So course features. So in addition to case studies, there are other elements of the course that we've included to, again, to make it very practical and job-oriented. So there's self-checks, which are really good practice questions before you take one of the exams. There's an on-the-job section, which is, again, tools that you can take for job performance. For some of those, I'd recommend you print them out and keep them, and you know, maybe they can come in handy as you kind of do your job day to day. There's Discover More, where we talk about some of the companies mentioned and provide you with leading news articles where you can learn more about how they are instituting a policy, changing, you know, developing a new product, anything that is kind of newsworthy that would be helpful to you. And then we have the Reflect and Respond questions, where we provide, again, business situations that you can then use them for your career. And all of these features, again, are designed to be able to, you know, help you speak the language of business, whether it's on the job, maybe you are coaching somebody at the office, maybe you are the one being mentored at the office, maybe you're going for an interview and you want to be able to relate what the employer does to one of the companies that you study. So by learning business from all these different angles and making it very personal, the idea is that, you know, as you talk about business, you can use it then every day in whichever situation you're in. So again, it's very much job-oriented, very much practical. I would say those are probably the two biggest adjectives that, if you know, if you, as a takeaway to think about the course.
Okay. All right, I'll move on to the next slide.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. So now you guys can sit back and really kind of enjoy the next part of our discussion. The first few slides were really just talking about how the course is structured, but I really wanted to spend majority of our time today to focus on two of our case studies. One is obviously Lego, which we're going to jump into shortly, and the next one is Netflix. So Russell and I host these business webinars probably every 4 to 6 weeks, where we pick a company and really kind of go in depth, and to be able to then use some of the business principles that are in the course and then highlight how it applies to one of these companies. So for Lego, again, the big toy company, let's talk about kind of where it's been, where it is today, and then to be able to talk about then some of the business issues behind this well-known company. So, 100 years ago it started. Ola Christensen was a woodworker, and he had a shop in Denmark, and so he made furniture and other items. So it was then kind of a few decades later that Ole's son Gottfried began thinking about then toys, but it wasn't just about toys. It was really about a system of toys, and what that means is, how do toys work with one another? How can one toy relate to one another, and how can you play with all the toys at once? So that was kind of that philosophy. And so, if you think about it, it took them all those years to then get it right in terms of the first set of blocks. So it was only in 1949 where it was where Lego blocks were commercially available in local stores. So then, take that from 1949 to where they are today, and so Lego serves about 80 million children worldwide. So it's one of the most well-known toy companies in the world, and or brands in terms of consumer brands, and it's so successful that they made over $5 billion of revenue just last year, and I'm sure they're on track to beat that in 2016. So that's the backdrop of the company, and like I said, when I was researching this, there's so much history here and so much tradition. It started as a family business, and you can see how that is kind of, they've kept their values in terms of being small, in terms of doing the right thing, and really their focus on toys. And so as we move to the next slide, you'll see then kind of what their corporate values are, and that I went to a Lego store not that long ago, and was quite impressed with then kind of how their brand follows through to their retail stores. So first of all, let me stop here. How many of you have yourself played with Legos, have family members or friends who've played with Legos, and kind of what do you think about them? And I think that might probably be a good input to then kind of our next set of discussion.
Oh, don't be shy. Well, I know I played with Legos, and my son played with Legos. So there's Legos laying around our house. My son's 18 years old, and there's still Legos laying around our house somewhere. So.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's and in fact for Lego, their customers, yes, obviously they're probably made for children, but they have a whole set of customers that are called the adult fan of Legos, because they know even adults play with Legos. They may buy it for their children or to supervise their children, but they know that a lot of adults like to tinker and build like those gigantic sculptures. And at our local Lego store, somebody made a giraffe out of Lego. So I'm sure that was not in one of their kits. I'm sure that was some individual's personal creativity at play there.
Yep, Dominique indicates that her son is playing what it plays with them. So.
Okay. So good. Yeah, so you're familiar. So yeah. So you're well familiar with then kind of the value and how it's set up and everything. So that's really good to hear. So yeah. So we're all in the same boat in terms of we've all kind of been exposed to Legos. So let's just take a moment to then look at how the company looks at themselves. So it's funny, when I was, again, one of the things that struck me is their mission. So I would have thought, oh, to build the best toys or to give kids a fun experience or something like that. But if you think about it, their mission is inspire and develop the builders of tomorrow. You don't see the word toy in here, do you? You don't see bricks. You don't see any of what we think of as Legos. It is really, they've gone above and beyond that in terms of to be able to say that their goal is to inspire and develop the builders of tomorrow. It doesn't say age, right? So so we can all be customers, right? They would view us as customers too. It's not just kids. So I like the fact that their product may say one thing, but they know their product is probably used by many more people than their core group of children. Or they may have started as children but have kind of grown into it, and to really inspire creativity and imagination. So to me, the two most important sections of this page are the mission statement and look at the values, right? Imagination, creativity, fun, learning, caring, and quality. It doesn't say play, right? It doesn't say Star Wars. It doesn't say any of that. And it's really to kind of, they've really gone above and beyond and want to make the toys just the means for this. So that's what I really respect about it, and kind of surprised me. And I have to say that after I kind of researched them, and then when I went into their stores near me, I see it at play. The salespeople were extremely friendly. There's a variety of products, so I can see how seriously they take toys, and that was really nice to see. So, so as part of that, then it's understandable that obviously that's why they're so successful, and that's why they, are generating $5 to $6 billion of revenue a year. So, where they are today. That's an interesting kind of perspective. So as part of that, let's move to the next slide so we can talk about kind of where they are today in the U.S. Okay, so so we said in 2015 that they were about, what, 5.4 billion? And so then, you would think that they're on a good steady increase. Well, what happened a couple months ago then, in 2016, they discovered that U.S. customers weren't buying as much. And so they looked into it. And then they said that but while U.S. customers weren't buying as much, global sales increased, double digits last year, and were continuing to on that pace. So they really looked into this, because that didn't make any sense to them, of like, wait, we had such a good year, the world demand is growing, but not in the US. Well, so they did their research, and what it showed them was the US demand was so high that US couldn't keep up with it. So they scaled back their marketing. Excuse me, and by scaling that down, they scaled down too quickly, and so therefore their sales slowed down. So you can really see then how closely tied their marketing is to their sales, which means if they don't market, they don't sell. So whether it's TV commercials, whether it's other ads, whether it's partnerships, they didn't keep up with marketing, but they did that so they can kind of get a breather to make sure that they can keep demand. But then what they did is they did it too much, and then its sales completely slowed down. So I found that really kind of revealing, again, of the close relationship between marketing and sales, and how much they couldn't really judge how consumers would react to what was going on in terms of in the U.S. So as part of that, they also opened a factory close by to be able to support U.S. sales, so they can meet their sales faster. So this is kind of all going on within a few months, and I think it just took them a while to figure out the pace of sales and therefore the pace of marketing. So again, this is, they had to solve this problem real time. Like, they probably only had a month or two to solve this. So if we had 6 months yet, then maybe they wouldn't have pulled back so quickly. But they're just like us in terms of, we might think it's this, and it becomes some, and actually was a different problem altogether that they had to solve. So I know I talked really fast. I want to make sure that we, again, cover anything that has come up. But as you can see, then, this is really closely tied to marketing, as we said. And on the next slide, we'll see that also they have a history of innovation. And as part of that, that's why there's so much demand for the U.S. From the U.S. because you have one set, well, you want to buy the next set. They have so many sets, and they're always trying to come up with more. And it's through that's how they've been able to generate so many sales. But it wasn't always like this. So majority of their when they first started out, their colored bricks were the primary colors: yellow, blue, and red. So if we think about, like, now they have so many sets and so many ideas and so many new products and so much innovation. So it took them 15 years to introduce a green brick, right? So they started with 3 colors: yellow, blue, and red. Imagine it took them 15 years to develop then the 4th color, a green brick. Now, so that was, back in the, let's say, in the 50s, 40s, 50s, and 60s when they were first kind of getting started. Now, 60% of their sales come from brand new products. So every year, there's probably a team there that comes up with, okay, what are other types of sets that we can develop? What are there new bricks that we can introduce? Are there new themes that we can introduce, right? They hit it really big with the Star Wars partnership. Maybe there's a new movie coming out that they can tie it in. Maybe there's just a new ideas or new events in pop culture that they can then incorporate. But so that's 60% of their new sales come from brand new products. However, 0% of their products come from brand new components, which means they have to think of new products using the same components. Or in this case, what we mean by that is Lego pieces. So using the same bricks, they have to come up with new ways of configuration, new ways of putting them together, new ways of stacking them maybe. And that requires a lot of creativity and imagination from employees who work at Lego. Yes, in terms of they want to inspire creativity and inspire imagination. Well, I would say it probably starts with they're hiring the right people to be able to then think of those as well. Now, granted, I'm sure they get a lot of ideas from customers too, in terms of their super customers who play with Legos all the time and say, oh, well, we would love a Lego set about this, or a Lego set that covers that. I'm sure they take that feedback very seriously. But at the same time, in terms of that's a lot to produce every single year, and at $5 billion that they're still keeping up with that and doing more. Now that is a well-run company. And so it's really nice to see that. And obviously in the news, where we always hear of companies not doing the right thing and not kind of being creative and pushing themselves, this is a really kind of heartwarming to see kind of how seriously they take it. And when they knew they couldn't meet demand, they cut down on their own marketing to be able to, because they wanted to satisfy customers, right? If you're a company, you would think, oh, I want to sell out. Well, actually, you don't want to sell out, because you're going to make customers mad because they want to buy your products and they can't, right? Like, so they have a whole other set of problems because they've created so much demand and not enough supply. So that's why I thought it would be a good case study for us to kind of discuss, to be able to then talk about, a company that we all know and can relate to, but think of it from the business side of it and how they make decisions to get the products on the shelves. So again, let's, I know I kind of said a lot in a mouthful. Let's pause here for a second. Russell, if you have anything else to add while we give our guests the chance to kind of make any comments or have any questions, let's take a moment here.
Yeah, I don't see any questions at this point. Maybe you have, has anybody thought about Legos from the point of view of a business? Is this something that, one of the things that we do in our business program is use case studies like this to kind of illustrate points. And we do that a lot in the introduction to business. it's not just in this particular course. We do this in other courses as well. So, you know, we're always looking for students to participate in this type of webinar and get you know, a conversation going, so that you know, you learn things that way when you're communicating back and forth. So. I don't see any other questions now.
Okay.
I see Mitch had posted that it's an interesting webinar so far, so I think we can just keep on going.
Well, good, Mitch. Okay. Well, on that case, we're going to shift complete gears. We've talked about Lego. We've talked about innovation. Now we're going to talk about Netflix, again, another company that's probably near and dear to many consumers' hearts. They've probably spent many hours using Netflix. And one of the things that that I was really kind of impressed with was kind of how strong of a foundation Netflix had when it was starting out. And what I mean by that is,
Oh, hello, hello. Can we, Debbie? Are you there?
yes,
Oh,
sorry,
okay.
yeah, sorry, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
For some reason, it automatically muted me when,
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there.
yeah, so anyway, I'm back, and
Sorry
I'm
about that,
glad.
guys.
Otherwise, I was getting a little nervous.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so, so going back to 1997, so close to 20 years ago, the founder Reed Hastings, who is still involved, he received a master's in artificial intelligence from Stanford. So you know, so you can clearly tell he has a very much of a technology background from one of the best technology-oriented universities. And then, so you know, before then, he was already working in the software industry. So it was a person who, you know, who really grew up in technology and used that to say, okay, how can I solve this problem? So, you know, that was their beginning. Now, Netflix has 65 million subscribers in over 50 countries and producing over 320 hours of original programming. And so, you know, we thought Legos made a lot of money last year. Well, Netflix beat them, right? Like it's close to $7 billion of revenue in 2015. I'm sure they're going to probably surpass that this year. So, you know, that's how it was founded. Now, the problem that Reed Hastings wanted to solve, let's move to the next slide. We can kind of cover that in more depth. So here's Reed, right, who has a very much a technology math background. So, you know, again, he has a bachelor's in mathematics, and so one day he was hit with a late fee for not returning a VHS movie. So for those of us who are a little bit older, we used to have VHS movies all the time. That was kind of the precursor to DVDs. And so when he was hit for all these late fees, he started to think, well, you know what, if you can mail it in when you're ready, mail in the movie that you rented, wouldn't that be easier than being fined all these late fees, which, you know, that's just money down the drain. And so because he had worked in Silicon Valley, he had, you know, quite a bit of savings probably through his previous companies. So he used $2.5 million of his own money to start Netflix. At that point, it was just 30 employees, and with 925 DVD titles. They bought them. They would mail them and like mail them to their friends in other states, and then have them report how long it would take. Sometimes when Reed would travel, let's say he was going to Minnesota for a trip, he would mail DVDs from wherever state he was in back to California to see how long the transit was. I mean, they were that detail-oriented, so it's no wonder that they grew from kind of, you know, one step at a time into this company. So because of how much money Reed himself put in, as of this year, he had a net worth of $1.3 billion. So here's an individual who had all the right kind of, solid education with real skills, right, like math, artificial intelligence. So he has that kind of technical and a very technical background, but then has that vision to be able to say, to solve a problem that we probably all faced, but then solve it in a very structured and sustainable way to be able to then last 20 years, right? Like in terms of I like the fact that they started small in terms of one step at a time, and to be able to grow it all these years later. So to me, kind of, their history is part of why they're so successful. So then as we move to kind of what they're facing today on the next slide, obviously in terms of pricing is a big issue for Netflix. And what I mean by that is, when they were growing, their monthly subscription prices were a lot lower than what they are. But obviously now part of this price increase, a lot of people believe, is because now they're also making their own programs, right? It's not just a DVD rental service. Now they have to invest in streaming. Now they are investing in all these programs. So first of all, I guess we should pause here and say, how many people have used Netflix? Do you enjoy it? Have you watched any of their series? Because they produce a lot of TV shows, and these TV shows are produced like movies, right? They're not low budget. They're very big, expensive series. I think the latest one that started a couple weeks ago, called The Crown, I think in some reports it was like $200 or $300 million to put this together. And so of course they're gonna, they have to pay for it somehow. So they are planning, like earlier this year, they said that they would increase their monthly rate from their basic rate from $7.99 to, let's say, $8.99 or $9.99. That's only $1 or $2. But at that time, people freaked out. Their stock dropped 11% in one day because of this announcement for an extra $1 or an extra $2 a month. And but what happened was, all these analysts, they said 41% of customers are going to cancel. So then the stock market freaked out even more. But then as they tracked these customers, even though they said 41% of customers said that they would cancel, only 4% actually did. So, so quite a discrepancy. So it becomes a very emotional response. Listen, we're all consumers, and no, we don't want to pay more than what we have to, but at the same time, in terms of how you think about value and what you're getting for that extra $1 or $2, at that point, did you know that The Crown was coming? How many hours do you watch? We probably don't even pay attention to how much we use services like this. So, on the next slide, there was an analyst who then actually calculated the cost per hour of TV and how much you pay. So what they did is they surveyed a lot of many different consumers, and based on cost and hours that we spend, it's much more expensive to pay for cable in terms of how much they use it versus Netflix. So you can see right here that for every hour that you spend on Netflix, that not you, but in terms of Netflix consumers spend on Netflix versus cable consumers who spend on cable, that's a difference in cost per hour. But in terms of it goes, this becomes normalized, and so when there's a price increase of $1 or $2 off of a base of $7 or $8, that becomes very emotional and say, oh, that's too much, but then we don't always come back and say, well, I just spent 20 hours binge watching on that series, or I really enjoyed that movie that I saw with my family 2 weeks ago. We don't necessarily pay attention to how much we're using a service, sometimes we just focus on kind of what's going out of our pocket. And it was really interesting to see kind of this dichotomy of, how value is kind of perceived, right? Is it rational? Is it emotional? Are they getting their money's worth? And I would say, yeah, they're definitely getting their money's worth, but sometimes, it's hard to admit that in the kind of the emotion of it, of all of it. So it's, I think they're back to kind of being normalized, but now the big thing is, like, how do they keep investing in it, because what they're always going to be facing is keeping subscribers happy, whether it's through new shows, through technology, new whatever. So they always have to think of what's new, because now, especially now compared to when they started, there's so much more competition, right? When they started, Amazon didn't have all the streaming and downloadable things. Hulu, iTunes, you can do that. So there are many more choices that the consumer has than when Netflix started as a DVD rental service, right? They didn't have streaming. Broadband was still kind of early on. So the world looks very different now than when Netflix started, but you have to hand it to them, saying, all these years later, they're still kind of on top and one of the leaders in this category, a category that they helped create and really shaped for consumers. Again, that was a mouthful, and I wanted to make sure I kind of said everything, and then we can take a pause and talk about it some more. Again, feel free to make any comments or anything, and also, Russell, is there anything else you'd like to add here in terms of your experiences with whether it's at Netflix or maybe you're an Amazon person, kind of, or just, again, talking about no one wants to pay more than they have to, but this is really kind of how do consumers really think about what they're getting versus what they're paying for.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, I pay a lot more for my cable bill than $8 a month.
That's right,
So,
as evidenced by this chart.
yeah, yeah. Does anybody have any comments or questions? I don't see. Let's see here. I'll give everybody a minute to type in anything that they want to share. Okay.
No, you're right, and I think a lot of cable companies are figuring out kind of what, because they probably also see that what they charge is not sustainable. Because most people are going to say, well, if it's only $8, why shouldn't I switch, right? But then they have a lot of the cable companies have sports programs and a lot more live events that Netflix can't really do. So that's the other kind of reason to keep staying with cable. But also cable, you have all the other channels, right, in terms of news or other entertainment channels. Netflix is just really movies, and now they have their TV shows. But if you want to watch, light entertainment, or, some people love reality shows and sports and all these type of niche programming, then you would need cable.
Right. Okay.
So it's really kind of your, your viewing habits. They are different, but at the same time, look at the difference in cost and value.
Yeah, Delmari has a comment. She never thought of it that way. I normally just pay my bill. Well, that's kind of what I do too, and
right.
Yeah. Maybe I reconsider that.
Yeah. It was interesting that people are calculating in terms of analysts of, how much, and I'm sure people at Netflix say, well, how many hours does a person need to watch to make Netflix worthwhile, right? What if you only watch it 1 hour, 2 hours a month? Is it worth it? Is it worth it if you watch it 10 hours, 20 hours? So it's more of, because it's TV, we don't, no one sits there with a stopwatch and say, I watched 3.5 hours today, and let me add that to my spreadsheet. It just becomes a habit. It's intangible. It's a service. Mm-hmm. So it's really hard to understand value and how much we're getting from it. But as consumers, this is something that we should be, paying attention to, right? Why would we pay for something if we're not going to use it? Or if the price increases, well, then you can say, what, I use it 20 hours a month, an extra $2 is nothing. Right. We should be able to kind of do that, but we don't. It's not, and I can understand that. It's TV, it's entertainment. It shouldn't be, analytical.
Right. Okay, I don't see any other comments. So I think we're at question and answer. So
Yep.
um, do you have any final thoughts, Debbie?
No, in terms of, like I said, our goal today was to be able to give you a glimpse of how this course is structured and how, when we say the language of business, to be able to kind of learn different business principles and to be able to apply them in different situations, or when you read about a company.
Hello? Hello? Debbie? Are you there? Hello? Debbie? Okay, well, it looks like we're losing Debbie here. So, um, you know, we wanted to do this webinar to kind of give you a feeling for what a Penn Foster course is like in our college. You know, we have quite a few different college programs. And hello, let me see here. And can everybody still hear me? Hello?
Muted.
How the course is structured and how it's a little bit different. Russell? Hello?
Unmuted.
Russell?
There we go. Can you hear me
Okay,
now?
there we go. Yeah, now I can.
I don't know what happened. I got lost there for a second. For some reason,
The
I
gremlin
got...
that was in my computer probably went to your computer.
Yeah, I'm sorry, everybody. We've been having a little bit of a technical challenge this evening early on. Anyway, as Debbie said, this is kind of an example of one of our courses. Penn Foster has a variety of programs. We have associate degree and bachelor's degrees in business management. We have associate degrees in marketing, accounting, and finance, and human resources. This introduction to business is one of the courses that's kind of a foundation course in all of these programs. And it provides a good survey of the different areas of discipline that you would learn in these programs, depending on which one you select. Um, I, it's something where, if you want to learn more about it, you can certainly go to our website. You can also ask us questions. Our college is accredited, and we do accept transfer credit from other schools. I know we have a lot of people that ask about that. If you've taken college courses at another school and you earned a C average or higher on it, that is something that can be transferred into our programs. So, one of the great things about our programs is that they're self-paced. So, you're working at your own pace. They're affordable. I mean, the tuition for our programs is much less expensive than for most colleges that you'll find. And it's something that you can work on all the time. It's flexible. So, if you want to work on it, say you're on your lunch or something like that, you want to work on your lessons, you can certainly do that as well. So, I see, okay, we have a couple comments here.
Great.
So in the world of business, there are many different principles to learn and adapt to. The webinar was very informative. I learned a lot. That's from Delmari. I see Mitch posted something. Thanks again. I think it's very interesting that a major company such as Lego actually needs to maintain marketing. I am already a student and I'm new to the webinars. Keep up the great webinars and more people will want to attend Penn Foster. Thanks, Mitch. We appreciate it. One of the things in the introduction to business, we do have a webinar that students attend on a regular basis. Well, you have to do it at least once during the course, and we have an instructor that goes through a webinar that's kind of similar to what Devi went through tonight, where we take a case and discuss it, and there's a lot of back and forth with students. So, I think you'll find courses like this very interesting, and it's a great way to um, get yourself started with a degree. So if I don't see any other comments, so if no one has any other comments, I guess we'll end the webinar for tonight. I appreciate everybody attending and taking some time out of your busy schedules to listen to our webinar. You will receive a short email with a survey within 24 hours. It's just like 3 questions if you have a moment. If you could just give us your thoughts, just kind of asking about the webinar and what you thought of it, it'll help us with our future presentations. We'll also be posting the recording of the webinar to our student community. Our student community is a great area where students can interact with each other and with faculty and staff. If you're interested in finding out more about it, just go to a search engine and type Penn Foster Community. Usually it's the first or the second link that comes up, and that'll take you to it. You won't be able, if you're not a student, you won't be able to post to it, but you can take a look at some of the activity on our community and get a feel for what's discussed there. It's a great place to talk to other students and find out what people are talking about in our programs. So and that'll be posted to the academic business section of our community. We'll probably be posting that later this week. So without, I guess, any final comments from you, Debbie, or?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, all right. Well then, I appreciate everybody attending, and hope to see you as a student here at Penn Foster. Thank you. Bye now.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.